on August 12th, 2013. It is my honor, pleasure, and privilege to introduce this evening a poet and performer who has come to us from the Lucas, Ohio area. So he has driven to Cleveland to share his amazing talent with us. His name is Mark Sebastian Jordan. Mark has been performing on the art scene or writing or directing or doing something creative for the past 30 years. One of the things that I love most when he recited a poem at one of our open mics several times ago was just that you could tell that he had been in theater when he performed. And so right away I went up to him afterward and said, hey, would you like to come feature at some future time here at Mahall's, which he graciously agreed to do. In addition to, as I said, performing in theatrical productions, he's also written his own, the Mansfield Trilogy, which is a historical piece that for about a decade was performed at Malabar State Farm Park. He is currently serving as the historian and poet-related person for the Ohio Poetry Association, very involved with that. He runs his own poetry series called, is it Borderlands, Mark?
Borderlands, yes.
Borderlands, in his hometown area, so look for information from that. And if you're not friends with Mark on Facebook, please make sure you connect with him this evening before he leaves, because he has a lot of really amazing poets that he has come to his venue, and it really is a short drive. I'm always so appreciative not only of those who come from the Mansfield, Lucas, Loudonville, Columbus, Ohio area, but those that come from Erie to participate in the Cleveland poetry scene. And I just think that enriches all of us that we have that geographical diversity within our state. So, without further ado, I should say he also has a published chapbook by the Pudding House Press in 2010, the Book of Jobs. And he has books with him here tonight, not only his, but also some anthologies through the Columbus Creative Cooperative and the Ohio Poetry Association. So when we break before the open mic at the end of Mark's feature, please see him and buy all his books so he doesn't have to take them back with him in the car. Without further ado, then, I would like to introduce our feature for this evening, Mark Sebastian Jordan.
Well, I'm living in the land where the grass grows green, and we got us more cowboy than you ever seen. And there's nothing going on, so we just watch TV. And the steak bird's on the menu at the nearest KFC. I'm stuck in the butt crack of Ohio. I'm stuck in the butt crack of Ohio. Yeah, stuck in the butt crack of Ohio. Where I've been forever and a day. Well, we got farm food and fast food that goes right to your gut. And everybody's fatter now than Jabba the Hutt. We're big and getting bigger now, I tell you, that's no joke. And that's why the state song's the beer barrel polka. We're stuck in the butt crack of Ohio. We're stuck in the butt crack of Ohio. Yeah, stuck in the butt crack of Ohio. Where we've been forever, and it's been forever and a day. The only sport they got round here's football. So you better drive the pickup truck, cause brother, that's the law. And as you go from town to town, you gotta push through the corn. And heaven help you, brother, you look a little foreign. Cause you're stuck in the butt crack of Ohio. You're stuck in the butt crack of Ohio. Yeah, stuck in the butt crack of Ohio. Where you've been forever and you've been forever and you've been forever and a day. Well, the American people came from far away. Around here in Ohio, they're all still squirming. The north filled up with them Polacks, and the west filled up with them Germans. The rest of us is enough to give y'all the willies, cause we're 1, 2 unwashed, genuine hillbillies. And we're stuck in Ohio. We're stuck in Ohio. Yeah, stuck in Ohio. Where we can forever and it's been forever and it's been for everybody and forever and it's been forever and it's been forever and it's been over, bend over, bend over and it's been forever and a day. Tremendous. Behold a sensitive boy, 12 years old, trapped in the rural backwoods of central Ohio, stumbles across Out of the Cradle, Endlessly Rocking by Walt Whitman in a poetry anthology. Decides right then and there that he is the boy in that poem, that poem is speaking to him, whispering to him that most powerful of words, awakening in him 1,000 songs, always to be sung. So he starts, tentatively, brewing his reverie soup. I never stop hurling new food into my swirling mythological soup of reveries. And a tacit taste of trouble peppers my saucy life's rubble as I try to learn to please. But my condiments are conducive to a passion unelusive. Oh, I'll learn pieces of a tease. Soon he begins to spread his wings a little more, writing in lyrical free verse with charged words as he writes 2 poems for the lilac girl. 1, the taste of a touch of happiness, how sweetly it lies on the lips as a gently savored flavor, like a wafting breeze over a field of lilacs on a warm summer's noon. 2, my life, my love, a gently intoxicating experience. My thoughts swirl, sweetly spinning, tasting delicious to my parched lips. Heavenly confusion. A field of lilacs illuminated by lightning. Luminous pink under a hanging black sky. Like you when I storm. Barely 19 years old. The boy's little poem gets published, wins a contest. It's almost like he's about to head off on a trajectory to some sort of career as a writer or something. Well, the boy's horrified. He doesn't know who he is, doesn't know what his voice is. He retreats, pulls away from all the literary circles he could have started, moving in at that point, and writes, and writes, and writes. For the better part of the next 20 years, until he feels like he has at least a sliver of a clue about who he is and what he's doing. He tries to write in all sorts of different genres, different forms, including one in iambic pentameter, at least most of it is. Because after all, what other meter would you use if you are invoking Christopher Marlowe? Christopher, you were, men say, dark, bloody, demon love. So true to conjuring, I'll prey upon your old nickname, Kit. A sullen glee should flicker in the atmosphere you slew. Kit. Elizabethan punk, all drunk with wine, reflecting God in vampire image, and in dalliance with young men giving lips. In secret, sun-tide, shadow-privy world, you somehow flowered brutally for near to 30 years in pious England old. To those who know, you flamed against the sky, called Moses, juggler, Christ, and undivine, and Satan, just a bugbear of mankind. You were Beelzebub, hop in playwright's clothes. Well, kid, how do you respond? You knew each beast desired all this world. The universe was your consuming lust. If tasting truth could come from Faustin limit, you would have given up your soul to know. Well, did it happen? I want to know. To breathe your Marlowe breaths, sing lyric and hysteric of a world so great all my furies surging red. I want to clear the colored glass of God so sunshine true can flood the minds of all. A hell of heaven for eternity is not the boring fate the whispers grasp. A sensual foreboding love to grasp is all the heaven humankind shall grasp. The gleam I want from you, dear Christopher, is hellfire bright to light the way of doom. Christopher, and if I feel no swell of youthful chest, shall I assume no devil calls on you to wrap in smoke inside my arms, my mind, to be my rebel lover, shocking boy? Christopher, Kate, now I know your savage heart is mine. No demon grappled hooks into your life. Your poetry was all the soul you left. Yes, I can hold it dear to me and know divinity's in us. We've all slept. The hero of our story continues writing, continues living, does a lot of theater, does a day job working in the business world for a while, all of which ultimately helps him find himself, even if he discovers that he is nothing, or the businessman pauses on his trip to Nogales. I drove out of Phoenix on Maricopa Road into nothing. Scrubland, dry as an old man's voice. Heat hovered like history, glared on highway swarms buzzing through the valley, down to where the Gila River runs when water comes. Miles of burnt brush in every direction. A mind of desert, flat, surrounding. Desiccation, elation, stricken awe, broken cicada rasp. I could not matter less here, lost and free and wrapped. Having discovered that he's nothing, he then realizes he can be anything, and widens the range of the poetry he writes, including writing some pieces that could be described as social criticism, or at least having a strong element of that in there. There's a quote, or a paraphrase actually, those who do not learn the lessons of history are doomed to repeat them. It was said by the American philosopher George Santayana, and it runs like a thread through the history waltz. Feathers fluttered down upon Wall Street, a gentle, silent blizzard ghost of banks that flew as Icarus. A broken record plays Santayana, plays Santayana, plays Santayana. Which pageant shall we play? The charge of the Light Brigade? The Russians in Afghanistan? Or again, the sack of Rome? That one never gets old. Once, a mother tongue spun from the Pamir hub, swathed in the sweet flesh scent of the apple forests of Kazakhstan, the numeric odes of Arabia, the numinous sun of the Sinai, the fork and root of the world. But just as Gilgamesh gilded the story of love, and jade steps reject the slightest trudge of mud, and Eve and Persephone elope to fly at first fig reflecting, and And the final words of God turned out to be never-ending. The season turns, turning, turning. And a burning sun, amounting to nothing and meaning less to everyone. Play Santiana, play Santiana, play Santiana again, Sam. We'll always have Cairo hanging over our heads by a thread, be it pyramid or pyramid scheme, be it Pharaoh or Jacko, Anti-Pope or American Idol. Is anything getting better? What does meaning mean? Is God a byproduct of longing, or just a new reality show on TV? A woman sings her garden to sleep. Jack Frost dances on rooftops. I gather my pennies for rent. I want to dance the history waltz with the IRS through the wastelands of downtown Detroit, where minivans are stolen to sell to families falling just south of a legislative jungle that fusses to tell a driver how to wear a seatbelt while prohibiting some lovers from marriage. I can only guess what will be next. Perhaps they'll put a caution hot sign on the sun. But lo, my dance cards in layaway for some New Year's Day. And I'm told I'd best be damned well brief that I still have this 100-pound ball chained to my ankle. Well, here we are. Well, here we are. Brother, can you spare a dream? I titled my reading this evening, Backstage at the Theater of the Mind, or Gongora, Rise Again, which I'll get to in a moment. But it's that whole process of finding who I am as a writer. And that turns out to be one who has one foot in the world of poetry and one foot in the world of the theater. And as much as I have tried to jump back and forth at different times, it doesn't work. My plays come out with poetic lines that the actors struggle with, and my poems turn into little dramatic monologues and such. I finally decided at some point, that's who I'm fated to be, and so I'm just going to go ahead and run with it. Once I started circling out in doing public performers and meeting other poets again about 5 years ago, I was delighted when I met a certain poet whom I felt was in many ways a kindred spirit. It's a shame that she cannot be here tonight. But Christine Howie has a pretty good excuse. Yes, Christine Howie, who is part of the Northeast Ohio team going to perform at the National Poetry Slam. Yes, absolutely. Christine is fantastic, and like me, has a background in theater. And so I really saw that we were, in some manner, working on the same trajectory. I had the opportunity in 2011 to do a reading with her at Sips Poetry House, or Sips Coffee House Poetry Reading in Mount Vernon, Ohio. And I suggested to her, I said, instead of us reading separate sets, let's go back and forth. So each of us bring a big old stack of poetry and just react to each other what we're reading, whatever comes up as the next thought. And of course, it being Christine Howie, I got my ass handed to me on a silver platter. But that's okay. It was one of the most fun readings I've ever been involved in, and I felt like I learned so much from her. And above all, I appreciate that she's another person who remembers that back in the day of Christopher Marlowe and William Shakespeare, a person who wrote a play was not known as a playwright, they were known as a poet. So I wanted to share with you the story of the great Poetry Drama Queen Smackdown of 2011. Her words are Rocky Balboa. My words are Little Lord Fauntleroy. She writes with big band shoulders. I write with the brow of Mahall. She chooses colors bold and few. I paint like a nervous squid having a seizure at the Crayola factory. She thrusts a chin of granite. I invite the world to be my gynecologist. Her collars are blue, mine are of silk. She wastes no word. I'm an extravagant cornucopia of the verdant Baroque. She kicks ass, I take names. She rocks, I roll. But whatever else can be laid at my feet, know that I went nose to nose with Christine Howard and lived to tell the tale. And Gongora Right Again is a tongue-in-cheek reference to the Spanish Baroque poet Luis de Góngora y Argote, one of your favorites, I'm sure. He was famous or infamous for fighting with other poets who were espousing ideals of simplicity, directness, and clarity. Góngora loved the opposite extreme, using the strangest, most colorful words he could find and intentionally fragmenting and mixing everything up. Well, I'm not really a Góngora, but I do have some tendencies toward extravagant language. So I couldn't resist throwing that in there. But as I was preparing this reading and thinking about how I have developed and found my voice as a poet, it very much brought me back to that moment where I pulled away from poetry from public poetry while writing in private. And while I can't necessarily recommend that route to every young poet, it worked for me. And sometimes when I see a young poet who's all too eager to jump out there into the world before really getting a grasp on what they're doing, well, it's the kind of thing that can make a fellow write a poem against Mozart's. Don't you know the sly velvet of indecision? Haven't you tasted the tart rainbow of diffidence? You've never sucked the shotgun lollipop of futility. Yet you spew dandelion seeds all over, like the world is your spring yard, and creation is nothing more than an offhand squeeze of your ego. Well, prodigy, I could admire your fecundity, your certainty, your juice. But I wear my words like a wound. I never did the right thing, never met the right people, never went to the right school, never let doubt roll off my back, but instead married it, and fought with it every morning at the breakfast table, and owned it in bed every night. And we made children, Doubt and I. And they all had circles under their eyes, smoke on their breaths, and holy tundras whispering wind in their ears. Perhaps you are indeed God's gift. We mortals are made of baser metals. But it is the metal of Cleveland's and Titanics and P-51 Mustangs and Colt 45s and locomotives and caulders and anvils and lead slugs and Model Ts and steel mills and broadswords and pens. Remember pens? It's an old school thing that poets used between goose quills and data chips in the brain. We used to chew on pens until our lips bled. Your lips lie wet and gaseous. Allow me to introduce myself. I have my chapter chapbook, the Book of Jobs with me, plus a couple of anthologies if you get a chance would like to pick up any of those. This is the Ides of March anthology recently published by Columbus Creative Cooperative. And I have a poem in here called Rubicon, which happily I wrote before they started the theme for this. So all I had to do was mail it in. Rubicon. I wish I could file you away, but it's like listening to a favorite piece of music. Even after 100 spins, my ears overturn new things. And I wonder how I missed those strands, those relationships. Time doesn't lessen pain. It just puts it further down the road. But if all roads lead to Rome, then you were its empire. And some nights Tchaikovsky drives me over the Rubicon of time. And I gather my legions, prepare to march and seize what should rightly be mine. Somewhere around dawn, I remember your husband, sweet and sane and good for you. Not to mention your baby, Wally. And I dismiss my gall. Yet I shall always believe you spend some portion of every day eyeing the ambient way, in case your heart should flutter like a distant regimental flag snapping in the noonday sun. I've also been involved here lately with a group that the Cleveland poet Brandon Stroud started called Experimental Poetics of Cleveland. And they've already published the first journal of this group's Conversations and Explorations, which seek to look at ways of expanding, looking at different angles with creativity than what have traditionally been the form. The whole first journal, which consists of conversations, exercises, illustrations, and poems, was organized around the idea of telepathy, how to use mental processing that's different than what has been used before. And after reading huge amounts of the stuff that was posted on the group's Facebook site, I got very charged up and wanted to jump into the fray and didn't know of any way to do it better than to write some poems. These poems have a lot to do with that notion of the theater of the mind. There's a book many of you may have read by the great German writer Hermann Hesse called Steppenwolf, The Wolf of the Steppes. And it involves a magic theater that the main character encounters, wherein he sees things about his life and his world enacted on this impossibly huge stage. When Hesse wrote that novel in the 1920s, well, he later said it saved his life. And when I had retreated away from the literary world to practice my writing for years and years and years, I read the book, and it saved my life too. At that point, I think I first started creeping into that theater, hanging out in the balcony, in the lobby, working my way around backstage. And it's only in these last few years that I finally stepped out onto that stage. So I had a few thoughts relating to that and these other conversations in The 9 Telepathic Poetics of the Wolf of the Steppes. 1. There was this wall, and there was a door lit with fluorescent lights. 25 years ago, I stepped into Hesse's magic theater of the mind with pen and paper and have been sketching the silvery peal of Mozart's laughter, echoing into the dim corners of that auditorium ever since. 2. Angles of the world appear on the stage. Projections from someone's mind. It might be mine, it might be yours. No one is sure, but the stage flips to the opposite end of the auditorium whenever we try to search the walls for a projection. 3.